whilst we are presenting, but not the plenary session. So there won't be anything recorded when people are talking. So welcome to the conference. And this is our program for the day. As I said in my initial introduction, we have a very good range of speakers today, all of whom have some connection with the program, I think. And so in what we're saying, I think we'll give you a picture of some of the breadth of what we consider to be ecotherapy. But the question that we're sitting with is what ecotherapy is about. And what I'd like to do is to talk a little bit generally and then talk more specifically about my view. So ecotherapy is a very broad field. It's a field that's developed over the last, probably the last 20 years or so, 10 years even. I started running training programs in ecotherapy in 2010, 2011. So, you know, we've been in it pretty much from the beginning. And we were doing work in this field before that. But over that time, the number of different kinds of areas that have developed are massive. So, you know, talking about the things we've done, you know, this is one of our first ecotherapy courses in France in 2011. And you can see a group of people out on a walk and taking people out into nature. This is a very basic aspect of ecotherapy. We've done craft work, artwork in nature. This is a spiral that somebody created. Of course, this is a reminder of labyrinths and so on. This was a bit small to walk, but we've made larger spirals that you can do walking in. And I think this one was used in rituals with, you can see the ash in the center where incense has been burned. This is a session on a beach, actually looking at the remains of a petrified forest in Wales, in Borth. This is an intensive in the woods. You can see here, this is Debbie actually going off with her sleeping bag and her hammock to find a place to spend the night on her own. Swimming in the lake. This is in France, you know, going into water, and somebody's made a sandcastle here. You know, I think one of the things that ecotherapy does for us sometimes is to allow us to go back to those childhood experiences of being in nature. These are actually family pictures, but they're a reminder that nature is something we can do with people of all ages, taking them out into the woods, taking them out into the fields, taking them out onto beaches and so on. People of all ages can connect to nature in all sorts of different ways. This is a giant caterpillar that we found in Wales on one of our intensives there. We did a series of intensives there in a wood. And this giant moth caterpillar, I can't remember what sort it is, but we found this one, and it's rather remarkable. And this paying attention to things in small details when we find them. This was a lost little baby mouse we found in the garden that needed rescuing, and baby birds, a seed head. You know, noticing the detail of things, encountering things in a different way, this kind of mindfulness of nature, these are important aspects of the practice. Times in contemplation, times out walking, challenging ourselves, doing something more energetic. This is one of our early intensives, the first one we ran in the UK, and it was at the end of March. We were expecting spring weather, but we got snow. Doing art outdoors, relating to nature in a creative way, using natural objects. This is the Edge of the Wild, a gathering of the eco-psychology movement in Britain. And I've been to this a number of times. A lot of interest, an outdoor gathering. This is a ritual that we did on one of our programs, floating a boat that we'd made together down the river. This is a place to grow. This is a gardening project local to us in Leicester. This is the kind of community garden that many people get involved in when they're working with mental health, getting people outdoors, something that people can engage with. Our own garden, where we've developed a keyhole garden in which you can grow things in a way that is self-sustaining, self-fertilizing and so on, with a compost heap in the middle. This was our intensive just very recently, 2 years ago, in the New Forest. And again, group of students here experiencing taking ecotherapy out into the wild. And this is one of our training programs in January, sitting round with our coats on, still in the outdoors, engaging with the outdoor environment, with nature. This is the basic model of our 10 Directions program. And I'm not going to go into this in detail. I don't have the time, but it has the 5 dimensions, the container, which we work with, our own embodied presence, and the space in which we work. It has a theoretical base in a Buddhist model of psychotherapy. It works with the personal, it works with the cultural and collective dimension, and it works with engaged practice. And underpinning it, a Buddhist framework of ideas. Buddhism has always had a deep connection with nature, and drawing on that deep connection, we have a Buddhist framework. Buddhism teaches a lot about the way in which people disconnect from nature, and we work with reconnection, reconnecting ourselves. We work with ideas of the ways in which people distance themselves from the world through consumption and clinging, alienation and distancing, all the ways in which we disconnect from our place in the natural order of things. And through ecotherapy, we see a process of countering this individualistic thinking and seeing the importance of interdependence. We move from an anthropocentric way of thinking about things, which is in many ways underlies a lot of the problems of our age and is the collective delusion that our society suffers from. And the methods that we do from this come from Buddhism: mindfulness, appreciation, gratitude. These are all Buddhist principles, Buddhist ways of working, which are all about this re-engagement. We can also think of ecotherapy as an ecosystem. Itself, it's about, I think the danger is that we end up in conflict with each other. We end up in arguments about what's proper practice and so on. We end up in arguments about what are good ways of working, what language to use, all sorts of things. But really, ecotherapy should be about collaboration rather than competition, finding complementary ways of working so that all the different styles of work that I've been talking about can actually serve each other and work together. And what we find in ecotherapy is that we have people coming together from intersecting disciplines. And this is what you'll see through today: mutually supportive paths, which draw on therapeutic methods, on spiritual traditions, and on ecological and sociological models. And all of these different fields, they intersect in the field of ecotherapy. And some of us may be more orientated in one direction, some in a different direction. But we can all learn from one another. And I hope that today this is what this is going to be about. And we can take as our model an ecosystemic perspective. We can think of ways of working that recognize that we have a part in the systems of the planet. We have responsibilities to the planet. So not just staying within our small worlds, but reaching out beyond them, appreciating our role in terms of the ecosystem rather than just about our individual needs, not just seeing the world as a resource for human beings, as a place divided up by human boundaries and human naming processes, but rather a planet that itself functions as a whole organic system, which is interconnected and in which we are just one part. And just to put this in a different way, monocultures rarely thrive. If ecotherapy is simply about human benefit, it will soon outgrow its fertility. There is a danger of importing the ills of the modern world, which are at root the causes of many mental health problems, into our work as we mirror the dynamics of consumption and delineation of our territory in our working environments. So in other words, if we cannot develop ecotherapy that is mutually supportive, that listens, that reaches out to different people, then it's like we're going to be creating just those same problems within the ecotherapy movement as we see in society as a whole. That problem of divisions, that problem of separating out different areas of expertise and not speaking to each other, the problems of competition and so on, of ownership, and all of those things that create a world that is actually destroying itself at the moment. And we can think of this in terms of different levels. Linda Buzzell has a theoretical idea of there being two levels of ecotherapy, level 1 and level 2. And I think this is a very good way of thinking about our work. Level 1 ecotherapy is very much about the person who is engaging with nature as a therapeutic medium. So in a way, it's like taking the consulting room outdoors. And a lot of the ecotherapy that we do is of this nature. You know, when we are working with clients and we take people out into nature, our central focus is the needs of that client and what can the natural environment give to them? How can we creatively use the things around us as resources to serve their therapy? This is good practice. This is fine, but it's not the whole picture. And if it's disconnected from level 2 ecotherapy, which is an embeddedness and a mutuality, then actually we start to lose something. So I see these very much as a pyramid. You know, we do that walk and talk therapy. We take our clients outdoors. We do creative work with them. We do exploratory work with them. We do regressive work with them. We look at what objects stand out for them and what they represent, the symbolism of them. We look at metaphor. We look at all of these ways in which the client's life can be explored and enhanced and so on through their contact with nature. And, you know, whether we're doing mindfulness and they're becoming more calm, whether we're doing more psychodynamic work and looking at the deep meaning of things, we're basically doing it from a client-centered perspective. And nature becomes our therapeutic field in which we operate. So, you know, I think these are important ways of working, and they are the bread and butter of what we do as ecotherapists, but they need to sit in a bigger picture. So we can work from those perspectives, but we ourselves need to be aware of the whole underpinning of our work in a much more ecosystemic model. And I know that some of the speakers today are going to be talking about this difference and this importance of an ecosystemic perspective. And so in doing this, we ourselves need to be aware of the fact that we are not in isolation. We are interconnected with the spaces that we work in, the processes that we are engaged in, the life processes, the cycles, the moving of the seasons, the turning of the days. These are things that we need to bring ourselves into and to experience. And we need to respect the mutuality with the environment, that we have a space there, but so does the robin, so does the pigeon, so does the hedgehog, so does the wolf, so does the shark in the sea. All these creatures, and the trees and the plants and the flowers and the algae, they all have their place in the ecosystem, and all of us live within the same conditions. And we need to respect that and respect the mutuality that brings. So an embeddedness in this respect, I think, is the foundation of our work. Whilst what we offer to others as therapists often seems to sit more comfortably in the level 1 field because our clients and their needs are our central focus and concern, it is important that we ourselves are firmly rooted in the level 2 attitudes, embracing into our practice a wider vision of context and a more provisional hold on anthropocentric values. And so I'm going to leave you with these thoughts and with this image of a Japanese temple, which I visited a couple of years ago when I was doing an ordination in Japan. And I think that itself shows some of the dilemmas that we're faced with, much as I would not want to travel to other parts of the world. 2 years ago, I was faced with the dilemma of whether to go to take this ordination, and the only place I could do it was in Japan. And so I did go there and I visited there. And what a beautiful place, and what learning I brought back from that experience. Okay, thank you very much.
You need to record me, Caroline, or
yes,
not?
I'm going to record you now.
Okay. It's so lovely to see some familiar faces and some new faces. So I've got my 15 minutes and I was thinking about what I'd say and how I'd format it. I haven't got anything for you to look at, so I'm just going to speak. So I'm going to speak for 5 minutes about where and how I came to ecotherapy. I'm going to speak for 5 minutes about how the 10 Directions ecotherapy training sat with me and what I was experiencing. And then about 5 minutes, I'll just talk about where it's going for me and how I've moved into that. So my background is archaeology. I'm a prehistoric archaeologist, and that's by training. But before that, right at the very beginning of my life, I had a very strong connection to the land. I would say really I had an animistic upbringing where everything was alive. Everything was part of our way of being. We had a small holding with all sorts of animals. When it was lambing time, we'd put the lambs in the bottom Arga if they needed it. And we just knew that we had a reciprocal responsibility in caring for and from the beings in our world. And, I loved the fact that like the ivy would come in my bedroom windows, and I just felt that right from a very early age. And naturally, I connected to the prehistoric archaeology because it felt like the human story was merged in with the ecological story. And I had a real wish to study that. So I did. And I became a prehistoric archaeologist in Ireland. I was very lucky. I was digging in some really amazing things near the Boyne Valley, and I was very blessed to have that. I didn't realize at the time what an amazing and eye-opening and deeply mythical experience it was to be working in Ireland on their own prehistoric archaeology. It was really amazing. And looking back, I sometimes just breathe into just how lucky I was. I could go into Newgrange, if anybody knows Newgrange. I could go into it. We could literally, the archaeologist past was just this, people would just go, yeah, come and see this fairy ring, come and see this, place. And it was like, wow, just walk in and feel the ancestors breathing. And so as time went on, and I actually then became a probation officer, which was really odd because it felt like the complete opposite of that kind of animistic, immersive, bigger than thou kind of experience. It was really them and us, and threat was everywhere. Threat from the dominance, threat from this is my way of being and it's right. And both sides, I mean, talk about duality. It was just really powerful. And being a probation officer in my suit and having the might of the criminal justice system behind me, it felt very, it felt like I was in danger of losing myself into cynicism and a sense of enforced power that didn't feel right. So I ran away and went back to archaeology. And then, anyway, to cut a long story short, because I've already spoken for 4 minutes, basically, I then did a green economy master's, and it was that point when I realized that the woes of the world, the Anthropocene, the whole multi-collapses that we were in or anticipating, it wasn't going to get fixed by me being trained how to sell solar panels. It was going to be only addressed by looking at direct reconnecting and relationship with the natural world. And it was that point when I really started to reassess where I grew up, how I grew up, and how could I intermingle my love of the earth and my ancestors into something that could be of use. And it was through sort of looking around that I came across ecotherapy, 10 Directions ecotherapy training. And it sort of coincided actually with me becoming pregnant again with my third child. So it felt very, very right at that time to just sort of allow this sort of seeping in of this energy into my body, which was doing something very magical and very earth-based. And so it was a very powerful experience for me to step into. So I wanted to become an ecotherapist, not because I knew what ecotherapy was, but because it was in the casting around and looking around, it looked and felt like the most honest connection with that kind of animism that the West could offer. That was how it felt. It felt like archaeology was very scientific and sort of reductionist, while we were having this very sort of multiplicit and reciprocal experience as field archaeologists. And ecotherapy felt like a place, especially the 10 Directions ecotherapy, and I don't think all ecotherapy courses are built the same. It was this one in particular that opened up my eyes to the sense of its inclusivity and its universality, and its kind of ability to say, hey, it's the earth speaking through you, and we'll hold you in that so that you can gain some training, and also you can sort of cross-pollinate with other people who come from very different walks of life. And I remember when I first went in and I was in a shed bunk room, and we all sort of came in with I'm going to use this for my career, and I'm this and I'm that, and I'm going to make, I'm going to carve a career out of it. And very soon, as the sort of the training went on, we learned, or there was a natural sense to detach. It was like we were holding something that felt quite Western. It's useful, it's going to help my career. And then there was a detachment, and we floated off. Imagine, if you see any sort of outer space movies, and they're all like grappling like this, and then if you just imagine they just go off. And it felt there was something like that happening in the process, which for me was really good. And I didn't realize how much I was holding a stress in my heart and in my body about making money out of being an ecotherapist, making a career. And then when with the gentle permission of the course and the truth of the daily practices, it was the earth speaking to me, I realized that actually what was coming to me and going on was both potentially very practical and applicable. And since then I have made some sort of career out of it. But really what was going on was reconnecting it goes back to that original feeling that I had, which was, this is me connecting to that 10-year-old kid who decided they were going to be an archaeologist. This is me reconnecting to that 8-year-old who watched the ivy coming in every day. And I didn't tell dad, you know, I was like, just pretend that it's not there, because if they dared to be tidy-minded and tidy it up, I didn't want them to. I wanted the earth to come in my window. I had a pet spider in the window as well. And I think that's what was so beautiful about it. And by the time we ended up at the very end of the intensive, which was 10, how long? 7 days, 8 days? I can't remember, in the forest, the bloody doors had been blown off, you know. And by then I knew that whatever came was going to be okay, because the earth and me had made friends again, and we'd reconnected. With that, you know, the sense of companionship, friendship, colleague spirit, professional rigor, all of those things came in at the same time for me. So it was multi-layered, and I felt that this was a calling that had been answered, and it's very rare, I think, to find that. So now I qualified from my first year in 2019 was our final thing. And then I did year 2, because I felt for me that I wanted to work on a project that had more of a one-to-one feeling, and I could really get into it. And I think that was a confidence aspect, that I wanted to be able to actually apply what I'd learned, learn my speech, learn my way of speaking, and the container within which I was going to then move into what I was going to do. And that was very helpful for me. And since then, well, the archaeology has come back, and I'm now a teacher with the Eco Trust, which is just wonderful. And I was just looking back over what courses I've done with them. I've done a sort of straightforward archaeology in ecotherapy, and how we can apply archaeological, you know, going on site visits and that sort of thing within the therapeutic container. But I've also done things about ritual. What does that mean? I'm a trained druid, which was also a very important part of my spiritual reconnection to my prehistoric archaeology training. And I weave in a lot of the sort of Western esoteric wisdom traditions through druidry. As you can see, there's a wheel of the year at the back there, and that's one of the things that very much marks my work. So I offered that. Steve and I, we did a workshop on the tale of Taliesin, so we weave in a lot of myth, creativity, and some aspects of our cultural heritage that we've still got available to us that we can tap into at any point. Yeah, and the art of reciprocity, which I think really is it's the earth spirit speaking back and saying, you're okay now, you're confident, you know that it's okay. So how about leaning into that, and let's see how you can apply that therapeutically. What does it mean to be connected to the earth? What does it actually mean to be fully aware of unity? And how can we, as practitioners sitting within our level 2, as Caroline was just saying, give that as maybe as a glimpse to those people who are maybe at level 1 or stepping into level 2. And I really enjoy that that animistic approach to my work. I'm now studying a PhD in something that I've sort of invented called Archaeotherapy, which is basically cultural heritage therapy. So going to land sacred sites, as well as sort of what we would call profane, but again, on an animistic level, there's no such duality. Sites such as open cast coal mines and things where really challenging experiences and feelings can come up for an individual. So we undertake spaces for ritual and creativity and group work and thinking about things, and it's an absolutely beautiful practice. what else have I done? Oh yes, and I run a circle for women who are in what I would call level 2 service, and that's one of my absolute favourite parts of my work, because ecotherapy is also something that is cyclical. So as an ecotherapist, you may well be absolutely at your sense of a sense of supporting other people and fully intimately connected to the universe, and then you can cycle right back and just need to go for a walk, or just need to just be with a leaf, be with that nettle. And so we need to support one another. We need to be aware that this is therapy for us as well. And with that, my work is moving into that gentle calling that I've felt since I was a little girl, and long may it last. So that's pretty much me. I've got about 15 seconds left, but thank you all for being here, and I'm going to listen to everybody else. I can't wait.
Thank you very much, Harriet. That was wonderful. Thank you. I hand over to Sam now.
Well, that's a bit of a hard act to follow. Thank you, Harriet. That was so lovely. That was really, really moving. I found it quite emotional. It was really lovely to hear about your kind of Tariki journey as well, I think, which I was kind of blessed to be part of that, to be with you on some of that, and kind of really understand where you're coming from when you, the way that you described it, it was really lovely to hear. So so I'm just going to shut my door because the guy next door has turned his radio on and is doing the mowing the lawn. Hold on. So I think I'm going to be a little bit quieter than Harriet as well, and do a lot more pictures, less sound. So I think I can share my screen.
You should be able to screen share.
Oh, hold on, that's the wrong. How do I go back to the beginning? From the beginning. Oh, can everybody see that?
Yes, yes, we can see it, that's fine.
Okay. Oh no, this is me. Got to trigger happy finger. Okay, so so I thought I would kind of share images with you for the next 15 minutes. I've lost my clock, so and I haven't timed this. So if I run out of time, Caroline, then just shut me down. So yeah, so it's really lovely to be with you today. My background is I trained as an artist, went to art college, years ago, and did kind of textiles and photography. And that was over in Ireland. And then I went on, became an art psychotherapist. So worked a lot in residential units, very kind of challenging behaviour, worked a lot with mental health, with open studios, that kind of thing. Just felt that the kind of the nature aspect was always kind of calling, and started to work sort of just off my own back, I think, probably with people outside, art making outside, and just using nature as that kind of extra support. I suppose for me, the thing that I loved so much about art therapy was that it was, as an artist, you're setting yourself up to put value on everything that you make, and the value is, what's somebody going to buy this for? Can I sell this? Will somebody buy it? Whereas once I moved into the more art therapy side, I realized that it actually is about the process, that it is actually about, it's about making art and the value that brings you. So it just kind of seemed to sit really, really well with working in nature too, and about this kind of constant involvement, and also about, you know, about sort of how art and nature kind of can navigate and kind of lead you down different paths, really. So all these images are my own. I've picked a couple of, this is work that I've done with other people outside. So using art outside just seemed to be the kind of perfect natural sort of language, obviously, because art and nature kind of sit so well together. They're both, you know, I think art is probably our oldest form of communication. You can just use it in a way that is so gentle, and making things like this can be really powerful, but at the same time you make them in a format that is really gentle to look at, so it's not harming. You can leave it in the place, you can let it sort of, like this image here on the left hand side, this kind of like little sculpture that was just left there. It was revisited over time. We went back and looked at it, saw how it changed. Things were taken away and moved, and what that felt like. So it's very much like Harriet was sort of describing about this whole idea about it being secular and not having a linear format. So that kind of felt really sort of important. And this whole idea about ritual as well, about boat making, and that was obviously part of the journey too. We going back to ancient times, and obviously something that Harriet talked a little bit about as well. So just about the fact that art and nature have always been connected. Their paths are woven through history. Art is seated at the very basis of human existence, and it grows up through all of us. The need to connect ourselves to our environment is a primary need for all human beings, and art can be that bridge. And there's a quote there from Caroline. Art is conditioned by nature. I thought I'm losing that a little bit because I've got your faces. I'm just going to make you small. There we go. Ever since people first sketched bison and deer on the walls of the caves, nature and art have been powerfully interlinked. So art exists in that liminal place. It's the threshold of what is known to you and what is unfamiliar. And this is a lovely quote, which we can't see. Can you see that, or is that just I've got all my faces here as well. So I'll just read it out to you. When you make art in response of nature, it can be like leaving the door open for the unknown, the door into the dark. That is where the most important things come from and where you will go. So what I wanted to talk to you a little bit about from a slightly different perspective was this idea about self-care, and about how I've used kind of my own art making, my photography and my painting, and ecotherapy, and mostly swimming actually, to be part of this this kind of therapy basically for myself. So the way so I love swimming, being in cold water. Sea is my therapist basically. Making art in response to swimming helps me make sense of the moments that I spend in the water. The sea kind of mirrors my mood, but sometimes it's kind of hard to read the mood at the time. And I think probably people find that in nature as well, when they that you get a lot of times where you get kind of storms, or you get rain, or you get, and you're not kind of aware of your own mood at that moment. So kind of taking photographs, I've found, is a really good way of kind of unconsciously kind of collecting that information and looking at it later. So each time I go swimming, I usually take my camera with me. I take photos whilst I'm swimming, kind of before or afterwards, and I don't spend, what I'm trying to do is to try and bridge the gap between what's conscious and what's unconscious. So art therapy and ecotherapy work really well in that space, kind of creating that bridge. So normally I just kind of don't think too much about the image I'm making, and just have a few snaps, have a swim, just and then just look at them afterwards. And then I normally find that kind of things come up, and at that moment too, then I will maybe paint from that as well. So it's a real kind of process of self-care, looking at myself, and also revealing stuff that is kind of unconscious. So some days, obviously, beautiful, calm, you get a mist, you get those moments of kind of revealing. This is a day when I was really, really aware of my own fear, I think. I think that was quite a fearful day. And also there's this idea about being very present, being very in the moment, and also that kind of ability to connect so much with nature, that being in the present is not as fearful as it is until you look at it afterwards. So I think I don't realise that I was as frightened as I was until I got home and thought, shit, that was quite a big wave. So once I get home, I usually try and image make as well, and a lot of it is about kind of that kind of reconnection as well. That's really kind of quite a big part of the process, and also being really, really, it's quite a beautiful thing as well, actually, to kind of revisit that moment, whether it's swimming or whether it's walking, or running, or mountain biking, or gardening, or whatever the therapy is that kind of does it for you, to actually be able to go back into that space and kind of revisit that feeling can be really kind of empowering as well. So if you come back and it was a big wave, to actually learn that happened and you're okay with it as well, can be a really important part of your self-care and your kind of your practice. So these are images about kind of just being underwater and that kind of feeling. I was just trying to get back into that space, into that environment, so that you know that you can, in times of kind of stress or difficult times, you can actually pull on that resource. And I think that is a really kind of powerful thing about nature, and about having a deep rooted connection with it. Can be such a draw at times when you're not in nature. Yes, this is don't know how I'm doing for time, but it's my last image. This is my happy place. So, and I think that's maybe me. I don't know how I'm doing for time, but I think that is my last image. So it was just really nice. I'm doing the photography as a tool, as an ecotherapy tool. That's happening in July. So it'd be really nice if you know, to see people there on that workshop, and we can kind of sort of look at different ways to image make as well. Don't know how to get out of this now. Stop share.
Thank you very much, Sam.
Oh, 2 minutes to go. Thank you very much, everybody.